welcome to the Courtenay Turn podcast. My guest today is William Ramsey. He is a return guest, and he is an attorney, he's an author, he's a documentary filmmaker, and he's an investigative journalist, and he does fantastic work. I always enjoy having him on the show, and this time I invited him to do a little exploration into the Knights groups. And it seems like they are pulling a lot of strings behind the scenes of so many different things that are very relevant today. So we did. That is what we will be showing today. This was a little bit more of an exploration into definitely the Knights of Malta and some of the adjacent Knights groups and who they are and what their historical references are. Where do these groups where they're derived from? I think that we need to do a little bit of exploration into maybe some of the exoteric versus the esoteric agendas and messaging behind them. Since my feeling, I had said I think we were talking about how like the Knights of Malta were very much they're kind of an anti-communist group, and I would agree with that. I think, but they're what they end up doing, a lot of these kind of shadow organizations and how they're structured, it seems to look a lot like, I guess, fascism, really. So they may be anti-communist, but it is still kind of an authoritarian, and in some ways totalitarian kind of a infrastructure that we are seeing. I feel like a lot of the reason why I wanted to bring him on and to bring this to light is because I'm seeing so much, particularly that this kind of was where I first was starting to look in this direction, was because of the medical freedom movement. And those who are familiar with the Knights of Malta know that they came from the Knights of Hospitalier, and their esoteric messaging is that they are involved with medical charity. And I think they do a lot of that. And I think they do some great work. I know some, and they're wonderful people. But I think much like when you look at a lot of these organizations, there is kind of the front facing, and then there are things that are involved behind the scenes, or maybe at the upper echelons that even the, everyday people involved in these groups are not familiar with. So this is not to target anyone or, pass any judgment on anybody who may be involved or affiliated with any of these groups. It's really just to shine light on the history and, of course, to invite some deeper exploration into what else might be going on behind the scenes. So because they are very powerful. So so of course, I also would invite you to support my work if you would like to see these shows continue. I'm so grateful for all the support I have received. We are now in the new year, January 2025, and I have really wrestled with whether or not I'm going to be able to continue. And, that is just because, unfortunately, as much as I love doing this, and I've had some great feedback from many of you that you do find great value in it. So I really appreciate that. But unfortunately, I do need to pay bills. So if there is any support that you can give, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. And some of the support that you can give is totally free. Liking, sharing, hit that thumbs up and share it. And of course, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. Follow me on various social media platforms. And of course, leave me 5-star reviews on the audio and some kind words. All of these things are totally free, very minimal time investment, and they do greatly help me. But of course, I do need fiscal support as well. So you can head on over to my website. That's CourtenayTurner.com, or you can click the links below on whatever platform you're currently listening to. And you can support directly through Buy Me a Coffee. You can send me a Venmo. That is Venmo at Courtenay, spelled like Courtenay, Courtenay -Turner. That's a Venmo. I am also going to be starting premium content on my Substack for only the paid members. So we will be starting a new format where I will have ad-free, and the paid Substack subscribers will get it first. So that is a way you can support me. I think is $8 a month. So, that's not a huge investment for some people. So if you're in a position where you can do that, that's a great way to support me. There's also the Cognitive Liberty Conference is still up. So you can purchase tickets to that and get some, get access to some great information there. That's cognitivelibertyconference.com. And then, of course, the saunas, I do want to mention, because you can still get a great deal on the saunas, relaxsaunas.com. And you can still get up until, I believe it's the 8th or whenever the end of this week, you will be able to still take advantage of the prices of the 2024, as well as use promo code QUARTZ to get your $100 discount. So it's really like a $300 saving compared to what the price will be for those who don't have my code and for those who wait. So if you are looking to get a new sauna or your first sauna, which I cannot recommend highly enough, do not wait. This is the time to do it. And that is relaxsaunas.com. These are far infrared saunas. There are tremendous health benefits for saunas and the infrared lamps. So again, relaxsaunas.com, promo code QUARTZ will get you that discount. And then we also have the rncstore.com, and promo code QUARTZ, COURTZ, will get you 10% discount store-wide. I take my apricot seeds every single day. And then I also have the restorewithquartz.com. And this is a new affiliate that I am working with. And this is a way that you can very simply, because they're just little patches that you wear, but activate your own stem cells. We all know how wonderful stem cells are for rejuvenation, for healing, for sleep, for athletic recovery. There's just so many great benefits to stem cells. This is why they harvest them. And many people have infusions of stem cells when they are, have extenuating medical circumstances that warrant that. And oftentimes they have to go to other countries to do this because it's not available in the United States. So this is a way that you can activate your own stem cells just by wearing a little patch. I have started doing this, and I can't speak highly enough about all the great benefits. So some of the testimonies, you can go to the site, restorewithquartz.com. I have heard the just incredible testimonies, and I will be interviewing the doctor who invented this. So sorry to go on so long about it. This is a newer one I have not talked about. It's restorewithquartz.com. So you can click the link and you can get more information there and figure out which protocol is best for you. Most people start with the LifeWave X39. That's kind of the starter pack, and that's the one I've been doing for a few months now. And so I don't do anything that I don't try myself. So so that's check out restorewithquartz.com. And without further ado, let's bring on William Ramsey. I am so excited for this conversation. William Ramsey, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for the invite. Good to be with you again, Courtenay.
Likewise. Well, I'm really looking forward to this. We had a little bit of kind of a preview discussion, and I think a lot of people think some of these Knights groups are just kind of anachronistic, and whatever is remaining is just, some sort of a kind of superficial brotherhood, fraternity. But it seems like they are still pretty active today, and a lot of what they're doing is very much in accordance with the original intention. And like we last discussed with the Pilgrim Society, it seems like they might be involved in a lot of influence operations as well. So I know you presented a bunch of slides. So wherever you want to go, however you want to begin it.
Well, I think you have to go back, like we've done that show on the Pilgrims back in September 2024. This is kind of the same thing. Pilgrims obviously started much more recent, but this is something that's been around in the Western world from the Crusade. So I think that Crusader tradition is still extant. And as we were talking in the pre-show, there are people around Trump who have direct ties to this group.
Yes.
And so I think it's very important to understand what it is, what its history is, and then what they believe leading up to these people who have Trump's ear. If not, Trump could be, some of these guys are very, Eric Prince is very influential around Trump and Trump's kind of right-wing groups. And Hegseth clearly knows a lot about the kind of Order of Jerusalem or the Templars. And this Alina Habas, her dad is like an important member of the Knights of Malta. So who are the Knights of Malta? I think is a very important question.
Yeah, and I think also there's a lot of discussion about they're calling it like the woke right group. I think right is debatable unless you're referring to it in a Hegelian sense, in the Hegelian right wing, perhaps. But I've talked about this, how I feel like that a lot of the narratives that the group that is being called the woke right are promulgating have been very much seeded for a long time in a lot of the indie spheres. I actually think there was an active measure, a funded operation through intelligence circles, through some of the what I call indie sphere. I differentiate between like independent media and indie media. And that just comes from I used to work in entertainment, and in the film industry it's very different today because of the distribution mediums are just so different, and with social media and with all of the online streaming mediums, it's not really the same as it was. But you used to have like the studios, and then you had the indie media, like the indie film companies, and then you had truly independent. But I mean, nobody really talked about truly independent. They thought that it was all lumped together. But I would always differentiate, because somebody who's making a $5 million film, that's not independent. Like it's pretty hard to raise $5 million, and you have to get a certain there's like the different stratifications of SAG film budgets, and in order to get it, you have to meet a lot of qualifications in order to be able to be approved for the various budgets. And anyway, I just so I'm seeing kind of a similar theme in the media sphere, where there are people who are they appear independent, but they're really indie. There's a bigger operation behind them. So so just
I think you're right. That's totally accurate, because a lot of these people are presenting themselves as indie, and they're not. They're really a machine, and probably still associated with a lot of the same operators in the old media. I think you're absolutely right. Certain names come to mind.
I think that tenant media scandal kind of broke that a little bit. But I bring it up just because a lot of those narratives, I think, were seeded in this indie sphere for a long time. And so anyway, all this just to say, though, that what's going on with that group, the now woke right umbrella, is very much seems to be surrounding Trump and doing a lot of infiltration, which looks like an attempt to create an Haven, a synthesis, a Hegelian synthesis that would negate. I mean, it looks subversive to me. It looks like they're trying to subvert the Constitution, and to, achieve their goals of eroding nation states, particularly taking down the United States as a superpower. And, I think the goals are slightly nuanced between the various groups. But in the people surrounding Trump, there's a lot of kind of technocratic, forces that present themselves as being right-wing, libertarian-leaning, but they're promoting things like a network state, which still has the result of eroding nation states, including the United States, and replacing it with, ideologically connected, but not geographically connected, technological spheres that you still need, like a ID, a digital ID to enter. And so people are very concerned about things like central bank digital currencies, but they don't seem to realize that you could have public-private partnerships, and that could start with independent companies that still require you to have digital IDs to enter. And you could have the same problem, if not a worse problem, arise. So because those people would have control and shut you out. I did a show on the network state. And of course, this is Peter Thiel, who is a big proponent of the network state. It's written by Srinivasan. Peter Thiel did a book called, he invested in something called seasteading, which was similar. This is this concept of having kind of like an oceanic structures connected to each other, but it went belly up. It wasn't very successful. He put a bunch of money into it, and so then he kind of dropped that venture, and he's become a huge supporter of this concept of the network state with Srinivasan, who is the CTO of Coinbase. So it perfectly makes sense. And of course, Peter Thiel is doing his Prospera, which is being very much advertised and marketed towards very libertarian leaning people. But this is the Bitcoin world, right? You can create Bitcoin cities, and the subsidiary of this Prospera is very interesting. It's called Vitalia, and Vitalia is Vitalia Forever. It's where you can, make death an option. And so it's a very transhuman agenda under the veneer of being a promoting longevity and health, right? A bio longevity hub. But I think it's just worth noting, because it's very interesting that a lot of these also libertarian people tend to associate as being right wing, which of course these are really technocrats. So there is definitely a distinction there. But also, I think it interesting to note that some of the libertarian organizations are things like the Mont Pelerin Society, which was spawned from the Walter Lippmann colloquium, right? And this is getting more to where there's the overlap, right? So you have a lot of these think tanks that this was Hayek and a lot of other libertarians, but they now have several think tanks that are part of this, which I think effectively, whether they were intentionally created as such, we could debate, but they effectively behave as controlled opposition. So you have things like the Heritage Network, the Heritage Foundation, you have the Hoover Institute, you have the Atlas Network. This is the Koch brothers. There's I think it's a consortium of 300 different organizations, and I firsthand experienced them investing into things like AFP under the guise of being very quote unquote conservative. I call them Americans for propaganda. They're Americans for prosperity. But so there's overlap, because some of these people who are in these Mont Pelerin type societies also are members of Knights of Malta and some of these other Knights groups. And I think people are very quick to put people into left-right paradigm. And so right now we're seeing that, Trump is going to be the next president. So a lot of people are championing and cheering that the Republican won. But when you look at who he's surrounded by, it does look like there might be a greater agenda at play. That's not solely comprised of American liberty. We'll leave it at that.
I agree. I totally agree. And new or different stranger people with curious ideas and these technocratic ideas. Andreessen has popped in recently. You can't leave out Musk, obviously. So these guys, and Musk is not really a Christian. I wouldn't put him in the Christian context. Certainly.
His mom is like pretty much an open Satanist.
Yeah, Illuminist, whatever you want to call her. Yeah, so.
And I mean, he dressed as the Baphomet for Halloween. His baby mama sings about, she's a total technocrat. She sings about how we appreciate power, dressed in all sorts of very satanic looking kind of.
Her friends are stone cold, like high end, sophisticated occultists. So she did a song with Bring Me the Horizon. And you watch those videos. Like, I know enough about it. It's all kind of New World Order, satanic stuff. So she, Grimes or whatever her real name.
Grimes, exactly. Yeah. And then there's also I actually just talked about it in my last show. It was a Reuters article that talked about how they're going to create this consortium with Peter Thiel, Palantir, OpenAI, what was it, Anduril, and SpaceX. So they're creating this whole consortium to have like defense contracts. And
which they already have. I mean, these guys, they say they're real libertarians, but their bread and butter of Thiel and Musk is government contracts. So that's what they keyed in. That's their base. That's their real base. So it's kind of a funny presentation to the public, but yeah. I think that it's kind of scary too, because a lot of this Palantir stuff's being used in the genocide in the Middle East right now, targeting people. They've targeted, like, supposedly accidentally targeted, like, a bunch of chefs who were there feeding people or helping people, but I'd be very, very curious about.
Well, they play all sides of it too, and that's what I think people really need to understand, because people get so emotional, and I think that's intentional. I think that's part of the open communications. People get so invested one side. I also thought it was interesting to bid on New Age government. The golden age, if you will, the Rosicrucian golden age is what I think they're indicating. But I thought that was interesting. They actually put New Age in there. But I think people get so invested in one side or the other. The one side's in the right, the other side's in the wrong. And, that's not to say that people don't commit, right or wrong acts or that, but oftentimes these people who are really pulling the strings, or at least, moving major, have major power to move things, are oftentimes playing both sides of it. And with Palantir, yes, they were involved in IDF's Lavender
Right.
AI, which was used targeting people using AI, but they're also using drones for Ukraine. So
Right.
it's like you think, well, what does one have to do with the other? But I think that, and they're now talking about, and I think they've been
Has a lot. They're all of Netanyahu's friends are running the Ukraine war, so it's basically the same thing. They don't want you to think they're separate. No.
Exactly, but they're all in bed together. And then you have what are they doing in the AI World Society? They're talking about how Gaza and Ukraine are slated to be smart cities. Ukraine is slated to be like the central hub for all of the smart cities, for the entire AI World Society to be funneled through, like all of the various nodes around the world to be funneled through Ukraine.
They just have to finish depopulating it first, just like they're depopulating Gaza. So you see it all together. This tech New Age is partially attached to this depopulation agenda. Doubt it not.
Yes, it definitely seems to be. So, I don't know if I went too far off on a tangent there, but
well, I think it's important because a lot of these kind of secret kind of groups or secretive. I don't think that the Knights of Malta is actually. I mean, they have secrets inside, but they're very public about a lot of stuff. But a lot of these things, these connections, are underplayed in the media. You never find out about the Knights of Malta in the mass media. So
the other thing,
absolutely
part of the reason I was even starting to look in that direction is because I saw a lot of what I would consider to be influence operations occurring through the medical freedom movement, particularly starting from 2020 over the past 4 years. And the Knights of Malta started as the Knights of Hospitalier, and their exoteric veneer is that they do medical charity work. Right. That's what the auspices of what they operate under. And I just noticed that there was a lot of what people thought was movements and organizations that were really under the auspices of being medical freedom, and those people seem to be lumped in as right wing. And I thought that was very interesting because a lot of those people weren't. I mean, you look historically, anti-vaxxers have not been right wing, right? I mean, that was usually coming from the crunchy moms on the left. That was not a right wing talking point. So it was very interesting to watch how suddenly all these people were being lumped, put a little bow on with a banner saying you're now right wing. And I saw a lot of what looked to me like psyops that were running through that particular group. And I'm not that they're all connected, but that banner. And right. So it made me start to think about, well, who could be working behind the scenes there?
A lot of people. I mean, I think that's really the part of the Knights of Malta is working behind the scenes. So I don't know if we talked about this in our show in September, but the notion of public diplomacy and private diplomacy. I think the Knights of Malta is all private diplomacy. So a lot of decisions are made there that are then played out at the public. We talked about John Roberts, literally the head of the U.S. Supreme Court, who was literally installed in the Supreme Court. By Bush Jr. There's pictures of him in front of the Maltese buildings in Rome. So, or the Knights of Malta, I should say, to be more specific. So I think that you kind of have to keep an eye out. Who are these guys? What are their real decisions? And these are people of war. There's articles from the left critiquing the Knights of Malta people as warmongers. So how many of these guys are involved in this kind of reshaping the Middle East and, the destruction of Libya and Iraq and destabilizing Iran right now and Syria just
and
collapsed.
I think that's also, and I'm sure we'll get to this and we can discuss this, but there is a discussion about, creating a greater Israel. But I think the mistake is that people really think that this is about a religious battle. And I think it's actually what I'm seeing is a lot of the people who do not care for any of the religions, except maybe a Luciferian religion, are really looking to create their dominance and an outpost for them.
I think you're right. I think it may be. I mean, the Knights of Malta are part of the Catholic Church. like just a huge organization with the most land holdings in the world.
Mhm.
So I think that they're part of their power structure.
Yeah, I think so too. It looks
So,
like
and
there's a
they
lot
can-
of connections with the Jesuits. So, yeah.
there always is in the
Mhm.
Catholic Church. So I think there's overlaps. Like you'll see this with Bannon and Burke and things like that. These guys are part of different orders.
Mhm.
And Bannon has to know the Knights of Malta. I don't know if he ever mentions it on his show or stuff like that, but
I don't think he does. Maybe I don't watch enough to know, but he definitely has to. And I suspect, and I don't know, but I know that he definitely has ties with Epic Times, which is tied to the Falun Gong, and they're definitely a theosophical organization and operation, and the theosophical group seem to be tied to all of these orders.
They're around everywhere, all the way up into the UN. But yeah, it was the Dignitatis Humanae Institute.
Humanitae.
Right, yeah.
I think I can't find it now, but I remember reading that they promised him like a castle when he got out of jail.
Who, Bannon? Oh wow, interesting.
Humanitae. I think it was to set up a school, and that part I can find. But
yeah, it was said they were going to set up this kind of like training zone for right-wing Catholics. That's really was their goal, I think.
Yeah.
I think it says here in my notes, it's discuss poverty, praised European far-right parties, and Bannon helped the Institute craft curricula. So,
right.
I mean,
But
yeah, this Burke guy is very important, who's also the patron emeritus of the Knights of Malta, right? So they're all around these kind of the new right, I guess you could call it.
Right.
Which may not be like the paleo conservative types,
Well, I think they're related because I think a lot of them, like at least the philosophical underpinnings, are very Straussian and Schmidt and Heidegger, who I think kind of created that paleo conservative. They were certainly the Trotskyites who became the neoconservatives, and then the paleo conservatives are kind of an outgrowth of that. So,
and some of those paleo conservatives flat out are Knights of Malta, Buchanan and some of these other characters. Lots of Intel people.
Yes.
So, like so many people from Intel that we know the names: Dulles, Colby. What's the other guy's name? William Casey, Wild Bill Donovan, all Knights of Malta. So and you can see that anti-communist kind of fervor and behind the scenes scheming in secret societies and in secret groups,
Right.
And that's their whole. I mean, all overlapping things like that. Yeah. So there he is. That's perfect.
Yeah, I feel like it's an anti-communist, but only in label, right? As to create the target enemy.
It's a good question. I think the Catholic Church is inherently anti-communist. It's just a different doctrine because the communists are godless. So I think they're always in kind of a conflict. Certainly in Italy, and the whole CIA of these guys, Colby, who is like a Knight of Malta and a Catholic, subverted the communists for years. I think they overthrew the election in 1948. So they were constantly undercutting them in Italy, keeping them out of power and things like that, fixing votes and things like that. So,
right.
I think that's real. I mean, that's
I think that it's more. I think at least it looks to me more like a power play, because when you look at what their structure that they want to implement, it looks like communism to me. It's just they want to be the head of the communists.
The Malta want to be the head of the communists?
Not necessarily the Malta, but the I wouldn't know necessarily but possibly.
Well, the Catholic Church doesn't like competition in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're the Holy Roman Church and they're the original church, they think any other competition, whether it's the Albigensians or the people up against the Inquisition or the Protestants, are all the enemy.
Right.
You talk about the Jesuits; they're kind of like the French soldiers against the heretics, right? So I think the communists are in that view. They are heretics.
That's the original. When I look at the structure, like a Jesuit structure, I mean, wasn't Adam Weishaupt like the professor of
Jesuit trained, English
Yeah.
taught,
So he got the whole structure, the hierarchical model for the Illuminati from the Jesuits. Like, I mean, that's that. And he openly talks about the secrecy as being an integral part of how you build loyalty, and that people feel like they have more investment, and because they feel like they're acquiring clout as a result of the secrecy. And he got that from the Jesuit order.
Interesting.
So, which I mean, makes sense, but yeah, so there's definitely, I think it's more a power play than it is a ideological battle, but I could be wrong.
Well, I can see that as being valid. I
Yeah.
definitely could see that as a power play. I don't, like I said, Catholic Church does not like competition at all.
And I will just caveat, I know wonderful Catholics. This is not to denigrate anybody.
I was raised Catholic. I know the Catholic Church. I mean, I've been to St. Peter's.
Okay.
So I know this area. Like, you'll see it in the slides.
Okay.
St. Peter's is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary, and you can sense the power of the Catholic Church while you're there. There's really no other monument like it. It outdoes anything in Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem, but
beautiful.
It's just like incredible. Like
is it St. Peter's, you said, or
St. Peter's Basilica?
Okay, yeah.
That's the center of power.
All right. Well, yeah, maybe we'll start.
All right, let's go through the slides. Let's do it. This is the Maltese cross. So you'll see this all over. This is their kind of insignia, right? 8 stars, but it also represents kind of the 8, or it's supposed to be the 8 verities of Christ on the when he was making his beatitudes, right? So that's what the whole symbol of the 8-pointed Maltese cross is. So I think that the 8 beatitudes are loyalty, piety, honesty, courage, honor, and glory, contempt for death, solidarity towards the poor and the sick, and respect for the church. And then, so it's like, it supposedly represents the thing. So it is the Maltese cross. So Malta is this island in the center of the Mediterranean. And so the Knights of Malta, which is really the sovereign order of Malta, ended up at Malta. They kind of bounced from the Crusades in the 11th century to Cyprus, to Rhodes, and then finally to Malta. And then they became the Maltese, or the Knights of Malta. But they were always fighting the Turks and the Muslims, right? So I think that's really part of their core kind of ideology. So I think that's important to understand. So you'll see that sign there too. Yeah, there's a good picture of Malta right in the center. It's 3 islands. There was a huge siege there that took place in the 16th century. And I think actually Mel Gibson's working on a project to film the siege of Malta, because they were supposed to concede under incredible odds. I think it was like 30 or 40,000 Turks against 1,000 or 6,000 locals and 1,000 knights, and they held them off. So it's kind of an important battle. But it was the Knights of Malta, I think, were created by a Emperor Charles in 1530, and there was a papal bull in the 11th century. So they have a 1,000-year history. So it's their relationship to the Catholic Church is kind of like a sovereign order. They're allowed. They have buildings in Rome, but they don't have. They're not. I don't think they're purely run by the church, although they've had some recent power issues within the last 2 or 3 years regarding who was going to take over the Knights of Malta.
Oh, recently, who passed you?
Yeah, fairly recent. Yeah, I think so.
Huh.
So, yeah, the papal bull recognized the order of St. John, right? So it's St. John the Baptist. So that's who they represent. And you'll see that like in these, I think the temple or the Church of St. John's in Malta actually has a Caravaggio, like one of the great Renaissance painters in the church. Price is probably a priceless piece of art, but it depicts the beheading of St. John the Baptist.
Yeah.
But they really supposedly started as, military defense for the sick and pilgrims. So it's similar to the Templars, but they're not the Templars. They're distinctly different. There are distinct differences between the sovereign military order of Malta and then the Knights Templar, founded by 2 different people.
And do you want to go through that? What the difference?
Sure. I mean, one was founded, like Gerard founded the Knights Hospitallary or the Sovereign Military Order of Malta in 1048. And then they were focused kind of on medical care and hospitality. And then the Knights Templar were protecting pilgrims. So it was a different focus. And then they became like bankers too, the Templars did. So they were different than the Maltese. Right. But today, the Knights of Malta still have this kind of humanitarian arm to them. So they're still going around the world, helping people out. I think they're in Gaza and they're in the Middle East. So they still have this kind of aim to kind of, help the poor and the sick.
Sure.
But yeah, so the Knights Templar are.
Well, I think I just I'll add this. I mean, it's just like the Masons too. I know some really wonderful Masons, but the more I learn about some of the top ends and things that go on, you can't think that all of it is so pure. But that's not to say that everybody who's involved is somehow aware of a greater agenda. That maybe, or any, like, I actually think, like, we discussed last time, I think that sometimes with these influence operations, there are people who are intentionally kept in the dark, so that the reputation can be sustained. So I think there are a lot of wonderful, I mean, I personally know some Knights of Malta, and they're great people. They're, so just say that for people to know that it's pretty complicated. I think that there's some covert operations, and I don't think everybody's aware of those operations or the agendas behind them.
I agree. I think it's like that in Christian churches. The very top, some decisions are made that people would be surprised.
Sure.
Some of the doctrines, like I've talked to guys, some of the high level kind of Christian pastors really do believe in kind of a purge. If somebody's really, and I mean, they never tell that to the rank and file, but they literally think that if somebody's really a threat to the Christendom, that it's okay to kill it. Like, wouldn't say kill, but Joe's got to go. He's too much trouble. And that's actually a real kind of thing. Most people would just say, you're out of your mind. That's not true. But it really is. I've talked to a couple of guys who say that's what they think at the top. But the rank and file people in these organizations, these are Protestant organizations, would never do that. The Catholic Church makes decisions. They can lay waste to whole cities. They used to, especially during the kind of Middle Ages and during the Protestant Reformation. They would just destroy a whole 100 Years' War is a perfect example. So, maybe the rank and file would never kind of accede to that. But if the Pope says it's, or these people got to go, then they just do it.
Right. Wow.
So the Knights Templar the intelligence ties are incredible. Dulles himself, Donovan, Galen, right? Who is, he was Hitler's or the National Socialists' Eastern Front intel specialist. And he was absorbed, and a lot of his stuff was absorbed back into Western intelligence after the war, because all these people wanted to know his information. There's pictures of Galen in the U.S. It's really incredible. Like, he was allowed to walk free. I don't know how he got away with it. It's kind of like some of these other mysteries where some Nazis got hung and some got out of jail, like Skorzeny and Galen are perfect examples. But Galen and Dulles had a close relationship. Another Knight of Malta, another Pilgrim Society member too, right? So
there seems to be a lot of overlap with all of the groups too. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that distinguishes the Knights of Malta and the Knights Templars, the Templars were officially disbanded in the 14th century, right? So I think that they were done away with. So their legacy is still kind of around all the way to the Temple church in the city of London, and Aachen actually is built on the same dimensions as the Holy Sepulchre, so you see that. But this Knights of Malta is still so many influential people. Buckley also, I mean, and there's just overlap with the secret society network of power control, right? So I think that these secret societies go all the way back to the beginning of time, really, as a means of communication outside of like normal things where they can do it in a kind of secretive environment, and for the maintenance of power. And so they probably see themselves as defenders of Western civilization.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure they do. Yeah. So I'm looking at this. This slide has a bunch of members' names.
Right, that's the list of knights, if you can pull
Yeah.
that up. But you can go, and I think that's an interesting thing. Like, there's some people on there you'd be surprised that are on. One that isn't surprising is Joseph Kennedy, but Miles Davis, the famous jazz musician, Frank Sinatra. Some of these people are very European. You can see European royalty all throughout the Knights of Malta. Vince Lombardi's a curious one. Perón, all the way in Argentina, a Knight of Malta, so it stretches global. And you don't know what their initiatory things. The turn on taxes is one of the rich landowning families in Germany. I mentioned Buckley. Santorum's kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Francois Mitterrand, right? That's the guy who made sure that pyramid went in at the Louvre with 666 like glass pieces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's not a Luciferian though. Of course he is. But then these are all you can just kind of go through.
Right.
All these kings, royalty, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, Germany, Italy, Al Haig. There's Buchanan. Even Matsuda, that's interesting. A couple Asians, guys who like were architects in Jerusalem. So the Tredegar's infamous. There's Galen again. This is just something that's been published too. Saxe-Coburg-Gotha is interesting, and King Charles too. So the current King Charles, formerly Prince of Wales, is a member. But the Windsor family changed its name.
Yeah.
Their actual thing was Saxe-Coburg-Gotha.
I've heard that, but I don't know if I know why. Do we know why?
During World War I, they were at war with Germany, and having a German last name was not going to play well with the public, so they anglicized it and said we're the Windsors.
Okay.
And that was the reason for it. There's Wild Bill Donovan, Franz von Papen, was in conservative politics in Germany against Hitler, and then he got ousted. I don't think he got put to death there during the Night of Long Knives, but he was kind of one of the quote conservative unquote rivals to the Nazis.
Sorry, say that again. He was one of
Hitler had rivals against the communists, the leftists, but he also had rivals in the right. So like the Nazis were kind of always in conflict with the kind of main the traditional landed aristocracy, conservative aristocracy of Germany. They always wanted to absorb them, but they were kind of always fighting with them. And then the night of, I call it the Blood Purge, or the Night of the Long Knives, was I think 33 or 34, where they just butchered a lot of them. And then when they tried to kill Hitler in what's known as Operation Valkyrie, or von Stauffenberg in 44, most of those guys were the old kind of conservative German families that went after, tried to get that group together to get rid of Hitler, and they failed, and a lot of them died or put to death. Again, so he had two kind of purges. Hitler conducted two purges against people in his own party.
Wow. Yeah. And interesting.
Yeah, no, because he came to power on a river of blood, like tons of just of his own kind of so-called conservative groups. But the Nazis were kind of a different animal. But the other thing is, I think it was not Bormann, but it was the other guy, was also a Knight of Malta too.
Who
was the head of the Luftwaffe? It's a big fat guy. I forgot his name, but he was a Knight of Malta too.
Okay.
Goring.
So these were opposition to Hitler, or
no? He was Goring was, I think, the number 2 or 3 guy in Nazi Germany.
Oh, okay.
He was the head of the Luftwaffe, also a member of the Knight of Malta.
Interesting.
I think he's on that list too, on the list of Knights of Malta.
In its list, member of Nazi
He
Party.
was put to death. I think he actually dosed himself with cyanide, but he was at the Nuremberg trials.
Huh.
But Hitler, he was kind of a win for the Nazi Party because he was part of this kind of old, kind of respected, older German kind of conservative group who became a Nazi. So he kind of drifted off into the more radical outlook of the Nazis, the National Socialists.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that in my Nazi studies, but
Yeah, well, he's a member of the Knight of Malta. That's incredible. So, like, these Malta suffuses all these Western governments and people of influence. So it's like the Pilgrim Society. How much are these guys a member of that, or are the Knights of Malta infiltrating these other people? Right? Is it a one-way street or a two-way street?
yeah,
Because that would be like if they're part of the Catholic Church under the Holy See, what's the likelihood of somebody trying to influence them? So, oh, you're a Knight of Malta. Well, you have to do what we tell you, right?
mm-hmm.
Going up to Bannon and Prince and Habos or whatever her name is.
Yeah. Well, it definitely looks like they're. I mean, it looks like they're at least infiltrating everywhere now.
Right. Exactly. Like the Pilgrim Society, they're all over the place. So I mean, you don't know. You don't know these days. I mean, they had a guy who was I think he was the head of the Jets, fired one of their head coaches. That guy was a member of the Pilgrim Society. He owns an NFL team, so they're around.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's interesting when because if you look at the history, how this kind of came out of the Crusades, and it does look like what's going on with, as you called it, the New Right is almost like trying to resurrect the Crusades, like do a new Crusades.
Yes.
That's very much what it looks like right now.
Look at the installation of Hegseth. It's a very interesting decision. The guy's pretty young. He doesn't have a lot of experience in the Pentagon. He was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But just to install this guy in there, he writes books about the Crusades and has the cross of Jerusalem on his chest, and has this weird outlook. Is, I think, very telling.
Very
it says a lot about it.
Yeah,
they have beautiful structures. Like, this is some of their stuff on the island of Malta. These are some of the buildings, new government building for the Knights of Malta within the Grand Master's Palace.
Wow.
And there's Queen Elizabeth, right? She's got her Maltese cross.
Yeah.
That's it. So you see her connection and her son, supposedly a connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
That's, what is the connection? Do we know?
I forgot what it was. She was at some she's with the nominee. That's the ambassador to Malta. So she's hanging out with her, Somers Farkas.
Okay.
So that's probably what it was, is that she was kind of around.
Right.
Most of the CIA players in Gladio were inducted. This is a Colonel Towner Watkins. Most of the key CIA players in Gladio were inducted into Knights of Malta. Right. So these Gladio operations are all Knights of Malta people.
Definitely.
That's that guy from South. These are all Maltese crosses, by the way.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of victory of taking possession of the Isle of Malta in 16th century. Before the battle. This guy's done really good research on.
He does.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the Pilgrims and Knights of Malta. It's Darren at golden_nuggies.
He does great research on all of the kind of esoteric groups.
He's amazing. He's the one who found the kind of or brought up or posted the list of the Pilgrim Society members that I couldn't find. It's totally not on Google, so the Gulag has taken it out of the system. But
oh wow,
yeah, you can find it. It's really through Michelle Chosadovsky's website. Somebody posted them there, but
so
just a bunch of these Cirque, which overlaps with this. This is kind of like the stay behind groups and the conservative groups.
So here, I want to look at this a little bit. The chart that Darren posted. So he's saying that there's so this is overlap. This is Pilgrim Society overlap, but he's also saying that there's a Malta overlap, or
I think he's saying they're overlapping with all this stuff. Knights Templar, Knights of Pythias, Mason, Order of the Crown of Charlemagne. I've never heard of that. I don't know the Order of Plantagenet. The Rosicrucian Shriners, Order de Molay. That's definitely Templar or former Templar. So.
Well, and I mean, all of these have Masonic ties, right? There's Masonic Brotherhood Foundation, Mason. There's Grand Lodge of State of New York. Templars have Masonic ties. United Grand Lodge, Order of the Merovingian Dynasty. That's the bloodline of Merovingian. Yeah, and then of course the Scottish Rite has Masonic ties, so that's interesting.
You'll see later some of these guys are members of like the Order of Malta, then the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, which is a Catholic order, and then the Knights of Columbus, which is a more recent Catholic group with millions and millions of people, but they're also Knights of Malta. So it's important to see these networks, these power networks.
Sure.
Catholic kind of groups.
Yeah. And then Le Searle was the next one. The Vatican set up Le Searle in the 1950s. Yeah.
Same echelon of importance. Pilgrim Society, much more secretive. It's interesting because Ian Fleming includes this group in one of his books. I can't remember which one it was, but he seeded his books with a lot of his insider knowledge. He was much more, I think I mentioned that, but he is networked. He comes from a big banking family. Otto von Habsburg, Knight of Malta, Opus Dei.
Yeah. And
Pan-European.
Yes. And he was like a right Hegelian. He brought in the Prussian model of the education system to the United States, or at least he was part of bringing it.
And there's Richard Reinhard Galen. There he is. He kind of has a Maltese cross. You can kind of see that. It's the same colors. But this is Dagwood. Sergeant Levitt, wearing his Vatican Knight of Malta medal for his service to the papacy. All roads have always led to Rome, not the Jews atop all.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scapegoating. And yes, we've talked about the British scapegoating, but I think that the Jesuits do it as well.
Nobody wants to take the blame for certain stuff.
Right.
But this is what Malta looks like. You'll see the three islands, Gozo, Malta, and this one small one, I think it's Comino. Not very big, like 10 miles across, 20 miles.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Look beautiful. This is one of the castles. Fortress of St. John the Baptist, a historic fortification located in Birgu, Malta. Played a significant role in the island's history, particularly during the period of Knights Hospitaller, ruled Malta from 1530 to 1798. It was actually sacked by Napoleon, like the history of Malta. So it talks about that. According to some legends, during the time of the Knights Hospitaller, the fortress was rumored to house the Holy Grail, the cup that Jesus used at the Last Supper. So, and this is the St. John's Cathedral in Valletta. That's kind of the main city. But you can see 400 tombstones of the knights, former knights. And they're really beautifully decorated. If you can see this live, it's marble slabs, coat of arms,
beautiful
epitaphs. Yeah, it's really nice. And you can see how many tourists there are. They're all over this place.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So you see these kind of Western things. It just reminds you of, in the city of London and the temple there, Temple Square, all these places. This is the Caravaggio that's in there. So this is like them beheading, putting John the Baptist and putting his head on a plate. And you see the Maltese cross right here, right? All over.
I do. The floor is interesting to me because it's like a variation of the Masonic floors.
The checkered square, yeah.
Yeah. Theirs is a little more diamond, but it's interesting.
This is it, the Caravaggio. So see the plate there, getting ready to behead him. And then this is Knight of Malta in the Uffizi, like that's the number one kind of museum that's in Tuscany, right? It's Titian. You see the Maltese cross right there on his chest, right? It's actually pointing to it.
Oh, yes, I see it. Yep.
And there's Sammy Davis Jr., Maltese cross.
Wow.
Also a Satanist and interesting guy. Interesting personal life.
Huh.
And there was actually, he used the Maltese cross in certain things. Like this is associated with the quarter of a coronavirus. But they used the Maltese cross in this other movie. I forgot what the name of it was. But hey, now these are all just interesting.
Okay.
Secretaries of the Treasury, Sovereign, Modern Order of Malta Connections, David M. Kennedy. Just goes on and on, like all these crazy. William E. Simon, Knight of Malta.
It says Kissinger.
Yeah, Kissinger. Where's Kissinger?
It says in
El Hag. Yeah, El Hag was a really interesting guy. He had a lot of interesting friends involved in Watergate, Reagan assassination. He was a curious guy. Claire Booth. Oh, Dame of Malta, Claire Booth Luce, right? So you see Luce's husband is Pilgrim Society member and also Bonesman.
Oh,
CIA
yeah.
director, fellow knight William Colby.
I mean, Pilgrims and Bonesmen makes a lot of sense for them to be. Yeah. I mean, the Russell Trust connection. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They're Fabian, tied to both of them. But
this is interesting. This is this year. This is literally 3 weeks ago or something, 2 weeks ago. Oh. They made this guy, Patrick E. Kelly, the head Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, is admitted to the Order of the Knights of Malta. So you see this huge guy. And the Knights of Columbus is not a joke. But this is, I think, is in the chapel at the Knights of in Malta.
There seems like so many people are overlapped.
Yeah, right? I think they are. And you'll see that in these slides. This overlap with guys who are Knights of Malta and Knights of the Holy Sepulchre.
Mm-hmm. And what is the focus on the Knights of Columbus?
We're going to get to that. It's in here. I forgot the real thing. It's really supposed to be a Catholic order, a Catholic kind of service order.
Right.
But it kind of functions as a networking place for Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a power base, almost like, I don't know. And I wouldn't say Masons, but just something Catholic based. Catholic. This is the guy right here.
Patrick Kelly.
Yeah. So 14th Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, took office in 21. It's the chairman of the board of the world's largest Catholic fraternal service organization, 2 million members internationally.
Wow.
So it's a fraternal service organization. But it is interesting. Pro-life, standard Catholic kind of worldview. This is the Knights of Columbus. 109 billion of life insurance in force. That is a huge amount of financial leverage.
Wow.
That's off the charts. So their life insurance assets are incredible. That's
interesting.
So that's him. So that's him overlapping. He's the Knight of Malta and the head of the Knights of Columbus. And there's there's only been 14, so since 1882. So he's the 14th one.
Huh.
This is something like a picture of the Knights of. You can see the Maltese cross here. I think this is something that happened in Malta. I forgot what the name of this one is. This is the head, the current head, Mullen, I think, of the Knights of Malta.
Oh.
You see the Maltese cross there.
Mm-hmm.
He's Father John Dunlap, 81st Grand Master of the Sovereign Military Order, 66-year-old Canadian, and the first professed knight from overseas to be elected as the head of the order. And this is from their own Twitter page. This just published this guy. That's him on the left.
Okay.
You see the prominent Maltese cross there in the center. Some of the other heads of the order. There's mimic orders, so bodies in association which, using symbols and names not unlike those of the Order of Malta, are trying in every measure to represent themselves as legitimate and recognized orders of St. John. So these are kind of like the traveling kind of monks ideas that try to play themselves off as real ones. And they're saying get the authenticity confirmed by one of the grand priories. So they don't want fake ones. But these are some of the famous members, just all these.
This part's interesting, though, where he says that they have bilateral diplomatic relationships. Over 100 states in the European Union has permanent observer status at the United Nations. The Sovereign Order of Malta does not recognize any historical or legal legitimacy in organizations and associations that take advantage of the name. Right, so they don't want any counterfeit.
This just shows the European element of all this stuff. This is like Dominican orders are there. So he's the Humer de Romans is the head of the Dominicans. So, and he's also this House of Bourbon is a member. All these, the King of Spain, people from Germany, Dunlap, so all these kind of characters. The intelligence community, Casey Dulles, William Donovan are all involved. This is the recent one that happened recently. This is guys from the order, from the Knights of Malta in St. Peter's. So that's St. Peter's Basilica. They're walking into it. The bull of the Pope recognized the order had the absolute right to ensure the continuation of its work by electing in due time a successor to its founder. So there was some kind of succession issue. Pope dissolves Knights of Malta leadership, issues new constitution in 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. The change which the Pope issued in a decree came after 5 years of often acrimonious debate within the order and between some top members of the old guard and the Vatican over a new constitution that some feared would weaken its sovereignty. And this kind of describes what they are. It now has a multi-million-dollar budget, 13,500 members, 95,000 volunteers, and 52,000 medical staff running refugee camps, drug treatment centers, disaster relief programs, and clinics around the world. And, if you look at the U.S. kind of government, they used a lot of the, evangelical churches and things like that as fronts or as assessor helpers in obtaining data and intel and stuff like that. So this is probably a huge intel. There's probably a huge intel component to this group.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I would too. Great Priory Meeting 2023. This is gathered at the Freemasons Hall, London. So interesting. There's another.
Say that again.
This is a meeting of the Knights of Malta, a Grand Priory of Malta meeting, but it took place at the Freemasons Hall, London.
Oh wow!
So they're hanging out with the Freemasons there.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of overlap there.
There's Pope with that's Bergoglio with his his Knights of Malta regalia. Malta. This is just an article I saw, just kind of the history. This is the founder of the Heritage Foundation, Ed Fjellner.
Yep.
From 73 to 2018, Knights of Malta. Again, Darren, this is Darren again, Golden Nuggies. Vatican and Crown, Fabian CFR Club of Rome, Working Alliance on Heritage Foundation. See, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes with some of these groups like Heritage than they disclose. Their connections to other groups, like it's crazy.
For sure.
And in the common culture, the Maltese Falcon is interesting because that's the kind of famous movie that the center falcon that's used. That was the payment as a tribute for the use of Malta was supposed to be one simple falcon. Thus, it became the Maltese Falcon. You see the falcon right there. It became the Maltese Falcon with Humphrey Bogart, written by Dashiell Hammett. And then that's it. It's supposed to be encrusted with jewels. It's just covered in something in the movie. But it's interesting. And then this is the Maltese Cross. Same Elmos, which is one of the original secret societies at Yale, Skull and Bone Scroll, and Key Wilsett. So, and then there was a kerfuffle fairly recently, between Seymour Hersh, because he pointed out a lot of these guys were involved in the Iraq War were Knights of Malta, and it made some people very angry. So there's a lot of writing about it. So you can see this one is titled Seymour Hersh, The Knights of Malta and Me by Blake Hounshaw. But it kind of goes with his claims. Seymour Hersh, renowned investigative journalist, made claims about the Knights of Malta and Opus Dei in a speech he delivered in Qatar in 2011. Here are the key points. Stanley McChrystal, who headed JSOC, and his successor, Vice Admiral William McRaven, were members of the Knights of Malta. And many in the JSOC were members and supporters of the Knights of Malta, and some of the JSOC were also part of Opus Dei. That he also said that they were anti-Muslim, driven by a crusader mentality. He quoted one individual saying, "We're going to change mosques into cathedrals. That's an attitude that pervades, I'm here to say, a large percentage of the Joint Special Operations Command." So that made some people angry. Probably true, though. They're all Knights of Malta. And there's Eric Prince talking about Knight of Malta tradition on that. It says under here, Blackwater founder, Knight of Malta, Eric Prince, discusses the Knight of Malta tradition he followed under Bill Donovan. So you're seeing the same ideological heritage. Just more secret, This is a supposed list of confirmed members of the Order of Malta, though the membership list is largely secret. Prince, Paul Behrens, who worked under Dana Rohrabacher in Blackwater, Joseph Smiths, Rupert Murdoch, William Casey, Al Haig, Donovan, Leonard Leo, Federalist Society, Opus Dei, installed 5 SCOTUS justices.
Mm-hmm.
Phyllis Schlafly, McChrystal McRaven, Cardinal Raymond Burke, who will come up again about Bannon, Francois Poppin, and Jimmy Savile. I do have a picture, I think, of Savile with the Maltese cross somewhere. I've got to dig it out of my files. This is kind of interesting. Maltese Knights of Malta at the Vatican. This is Burke right here. He's was the patron emeritus of the Knights of Malta, but his association with Bannon is through this group Dignitatis Humanae Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And basically was a group has ties to the most conservative factions inside the Catholic Church. 2014, this institute invited Steve Bannon. In 2019, Reuters reported that Bannon had helped the institute craft curricula. And Bannon said he hoped to spur a populist movement in Europe. The plan was backed by Bannon to turn the Abbey of Trizulti into an academy for training future European nationalists and populist politicians. Mm-hmm. Bannon's interest, yeah. So Bannon knows these guys. This is the interesting one, too, is this woman who is Trump's lawyer. Her name is Alina Habba, and she's the daughter of the chancellor of the U.S. Knights of Malta. I call it this guy's Christo-fascist. He probably comes from the left. Catholic Church that fought the Crusades, sided with Hitler. And also there's there's a interesting thing with some of these mass killers that like the Templars and the Knights of Malta. So Tarrant, who's the Christ Church mass killer of Muslims, and then Anders Breivik, who killed 70 left-wing kids in Norway, I think, had this kind of, they weren't affiliated, but they had an admiration for the Templars and these guys, the Knights of Malta. But there's Jinan Habba and Saad Habba. That guy on the left is a heavy duty. There he is. He's right on you can go to their website, Order of Malta American Association. There he is, Chancellor Saad F. Habba.
Oh.
MD, I guess he's a doctor. And then Eric Prince.
Spirituality Superiority of Our Lady Lourdes. Of Lourdes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Governance.
But here's Eric Prince. This is fairly recent. This is August 26th, after they tried to blow Trump's head off in July. This is the assassination hearing. This Prince is involved in that. Does all this stuff talking about this. He's on one of the biggest, this guy, Sean Ryan shows, one of the biggest podcasts out there. Seymour Hersh, men who want him committed for saying all that stuff. And then this is kind of another kind of Catholic order, is this Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. It's a member of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, a Catholic order of knighthood under the protection of the Holy See. That's the papacy. So, mission is to support the Christian presence in the Holy Land. So it goes back to Godfrey de Bouillon, who liberated Jerusalem. It's a legitimate order of chivalry. And then this guy, Fielner, the Heritage Foundation, he is on the bottom here, Knight of Malta and the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre.
Yeah, and he was very involved in the Mont Pelerin Society.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. I can't remember his role.
There it is right here, the center. If you go back, if you read the second paragraph, they'll say that. It says it.
The second paragraph. Yep. I thought I was going to say he was the president. Yeah. Yep. So there it is. He served as chairman of the Intercollegiate Studies Institute and president of the Mont Pelerin Society and the Philadelphia Society, of which he is a distinguished member. He is chairman of the board of visitors at Pepperdine University School of Public Policy. Yep. Yeah. Mont Pelerin is interesting. Compare.
That's another show.
Yes.
And this is actually recent. This is from November 26, 2024. Cardinal Dolan, I think, is the Cardinal in New York. But he had the honor of welcoming the Knights of Malta to St. Pat's Cathedral, NYC. They do their magnificent apostolate rather quietly and humbly. So there's a video on there. I didn't have time to download it. But this is Oliver North, Sovereign Military Order of Malta, Knight of Malta.
National Security Council, Freedom Alliance. Yeah.
There's Hegseth with his chivalry, or what is it? Knights of Jerusalem tattoo, amongst other tattoos.
Right.
There's Roberts right in front of one of the Malta buildings going in there.
Mm-hmm.
Guess, it's okay. And then this is Alan West became
Alan
a member
West.
of the Knights of Malta. Yeah. Happily, 2022. It's official. He published it on his own social media. It's official. I've been invested in the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem Knights Templar. Took an oath to protect the Christians in the Holy Land.
Very interesting.
The Knights of Malta had a small military air force in they allowed them. That's it. That's all my slides. I think there's a lot more to the story. Like there's a whole nother Knights of Malta and the American intelligence community, because so many people in the intelligence community are Knights of Malta. So
it does seem like there are. Yeah, you had said that there was another one also that you might want to bring up, but
let me see.
While you're looking for that, I'll read this. It says, today I learned that 1947, sometime in the early 1950s, the Knights of Malta had a small air force. Yeah, that Knight of Malta that only has extraterritorially over 2 buildings in Rome because Napoleon kicked their asses off actual Malta over 200 years ago. The Knights Air Force was a subterfuge, a way for the Italians to operate heavy transport planes that they were forbidden by treaty after World War II. When those restrictions were relaxed, the plans got back their Italian paint job. If you find this funny, you must be a historic geek and we can be friends. That's great.
This is just a list of how many people are Knights of Malta. And it's kind of a European thing. Buckley. Yeah. I don't know who these 2 guys are.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a list. It just shows all these guys. If you go down, you see a lot of Jesuit educated people too associated with that. So
I guess the question becomes, it's really obvious that they seem to be everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of infiltration in the intelligence apparatus. So what do you think that they're... I know what their exoteric messaging is, and I'm sure they do some genuine good work, but what do you think? Why do they have kind of a hand in so many different places? Like, why are so many of them in our intelligence apparatus?
I think it's the maintenance of kind of the Western Christian civilization. I really do. That's what I think. I think that's the promotion of it and the defense. Right. So I think that if they see threats or perceive threats, they either work to, get rid of them, destabilize them, or set up things to take them, make them not influential. So I think that that's really kind of their goal. I think that they're kind of like so I do think that they have a egalitarian sensibility in helping people and stuff like that. But I think that there's, like you said, there's a kind of sub rosa connection of a lot of the stuff, and you'll see so many of these guys are involved in subverting left-wing cultural influences and political parties all through their lives. Dulles, and if JFK assassination might have been one. There's so many guys involved in the Knights of Malta around that, and even the Kennedy dad, Joe Kennedy, was involved. But I think that that's really it, is like, we're going to be friends. We're part of this Crusader Christian past.
Right.
And, we're going to promote Western civilization.
Well, I don't have a problem with promoting Western civilization. I think that's, I think that that's really is in jeopardy right now, actually. So I don't actually have a problem with that. But I don't want to see a resurrection of the Crusades. that does not sound good to me. And I don't actually think that is a promulgation of or preservation of Western civilization. To me, that would be the destruction. So I am a little bit concerned about that. I do see a lot of nods towards kind of a Crusades Part 2. And I do see a lot of the people who are surrounding Trump or somewhat or involved in the administration currently expressing some of that sentiment, and that's concerning to me. And then I also find it a little bit odd just that some of these people, because there's so much overlap with these other groups, like there's nothing Christian or Catholic about the Dulleses to me. I mean, they're kind of as satanic as they come, and I don't know. That might
Alan
be
for sure. I mean, but they're from a Protestant background. Their dad was a Presbyterian minister.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they doing hanging out with all these
Bushes were
Catholics?
Presbyterian too.
What's that?
The Bushes were Presbyterian too, weren't they?
I think they're Methodists, supposedly.
Okay.
I don't think they're Methodists in action at all, but that's their kind of public thing.
Right.
I don't think Dulles had it. He didn't care about Christianity at all. Alan for sure. I don't think he was Christian in any sense. But
yeah,
I think it's really kind of a maintenance of power. So you can take this kind of Christianity or even the Crusader kind of heritage, and it's really about maintaining power. And these are the people you want to be with because they're the ones who are also going to have influence. So it's also people like these holdings, like this guy who owns Blackwater now is a Maltese. So he wants to be involved and talk to other powerful people and talk to the other, members of the British royalty. I mean, if you look at this one document, the Engineers of War, it's global royalty, right? So it's the global kind of royal houses that are all involved in this. It just goes on. Bourbon, Brazil. It's incredible. These are people that I don't mix with at all. Like, I don't know what they're up to. But it's important that people do know because these are people with holdings and influence and stuff like that are meeting in these places like this to set policy. It goes back to what I said earlier, public-private diplomacy.
Right. Well, I'm concerned.
Private diplomacy.
Well, I'm concerned about the private diplomacy. The public diplomacy seems great, honestly. I don't have a problem with their public diplomacy. But I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And I find it a little odd that what their public diplomacy indicates seems a little that there's just a lot of questions because a lot of the overlaps don't seem consistent or congruent.
I agree. I think there's a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions myself. But I think we're asking the right questions by even just discussing the Knights of Malta, especially under this new Trump administration. You didn't have that much of a Knight of Malta influence under Biden and Harris. It was really mostly run by Jews, which you're not supposed to point out either.
Right,
I think it's pretty obvious. But so this is kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what decisions are made. I'd be kind of nervous if I was in the Middle East and Muslim, though, with these people in power with Trump or surrounding Trump. And maybe nervous about some of the people in the United States, too. So I don't know. People usually get into power who want power to exercise power. So I think that's kind of the unfortunate human trait.
Well, I think that's true as well. But the more I dig into these power circles, the more I see that I'll just caveat it with this. A lot of times people think that it's all kind of unipolar and there's like one marionette pulling all the strings. I actually don't think that it works that way. I think things are way too complicated. There's way too many, warring factions, and because, as you mentioned, with people who are vying for power, into positions for power, and they want power, so they will compete for power. And I do think amongst a lot of these power circles that there are competing interests. So, but what I also find is that they often work together. So they're masters of Hegelian dialectics. And, I think Hegelian dialectics long precede Hegel, with it. They have kind of an ancient mystery worldview where it's this idea of synthesizing the opposites and subsuming them to create the alchemical outcome. And, this way predates Hegel. I think Hegel was actually a student of that. And I think he had a lot of handlers who were very involved in that, in some of these ancient mystery religions. And, and some of the things we're aware of them today, some of these Hermeticism and Rosicrucian and Gnosticism. But I see a lot of overlap. So they seem to be working together when it serves their interest, but they also seem to be creating the appearance of having diametric opposites, but they're not necessarily They may have some nuanced differences and disagreements amongst each other. I don't dispute that, but it looks like they're, overriding and guiding telos seems to be shared. And so therefore they operate, in accordance with whatever needs to be done in order to achieve that. And that I think is really my concern. So it's, it's not the hospitalier type mentality where they're doing these charitable works that I'm concerned about.
Me either.
Right. Yeah, that's not my concern. And I'm not even concerned about them trying to preserve Western civilization. That's great. I think chauvinism in that sense of the word actually would be nice to see more of. I think that Western civilization is being completely eroded, and not to say that there aren't other civilizations that have brought great things for humanity, but I think Western civilization has done tremendous things for humanity, and the United States would not exist without Western civilization. So I think it's worth preserving. But my concern is that ultimately behind closed doors, a lot of these operations are actually subverting Western civilization as opposed to preserving it.
I think in their own way, I think you're right. I think it's a preservation of their class. Like this is like a straight lesson in class politics and maintenance of that, because these are all elites, landed estates, and what do you call it?
Yes.
Aristocracies.
Yes.
Hereditary aristocracies and stuff like that. So whether that should be preserved or not and things like that, and their ideas. I mean, it overlaps with King Charles' Great Reset. How does this all play in together there in the UN and stuff? So they have a seat at the UN, Knights of Malta. And the UN, to me, is not a positive organization in any way, shape, or form.
And it's not a Christian organization at all. I mean, it's like straight up Luciferian. There's no other way to describe it.
Alice Bailey, all that stuff. It's all there. The meditation room, it's all there.
The Lucius Trust. It's Lucifer
Trust. So, yeah, and the Rockefellers, everything they touch is like Luciferian. So, so like, it's kind of like these groups like this are very powerful people contesting and kind of overlapping and being together, but also competing at the same time. So. It's a little, they're the sovereign or Malta permanent mission to the UN. Incredible. That's a whole nother show is to figure out what they're up to.
Yes. All right. Well maybe we'll do that. But I am concerned about what they might be up to, especially because it does look like the Trump administration is very much surrounded. They seem to be surrounded by Knights of Malta and similar types of groups with shared telos, and then they also seem to be surrounded by technocrats. And I think both of them are not good for the future of the United States of America. And I don't know if there's overlap. I mean, I don't know if any of these technocrats have
they have their invisible college, they have their own meeting stuff. But I don't know if they're really, if they're Christians, they're really just, Christians with camouflage. They're really not Christians in sensibility. You can read Andreessen's kind of like statement of truth. It reads like a New Age or New Age view. And same with like Musk's advancement. His heaven is Mars. It's not some other world. So and Teal, I don't even know. Like, I don't think Teal is even on the radar of what his kind of.
Well, I think that the network state is a big problem. And I know a lot of the proponents of Game B, which definitely does have a spiritual New Age as well as political component, are very, very much creating technologies that are aligned with Teal and the network state. So there's a lot of overlap in that regard. I don't know philosophically or spiritually, but it seems like he's a transhumanist. So that is kind of a Gnostic worldview, I would argue.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
Techno-Gnosticism.
Yeah. I know people argue with me on that's not, but I'm using it as the little g kind of umbrella term. Yeah, this is Game B. Stuart Brand in 1988, he says that we are gods, we might as well get good at it. And then in 2015, he says, we are gods, we better get good at it. Game B is it's basically New Age communism. It's that would be a reductionistic way of explaining it, but the Brett Weinstein was very involved in the inception of Game B. It was Jim Rudd. Yeah. So the guy who says that we should phoenix the republic, which I think was a Rosicrucian kind of indication.
He's more sinister than he looks. He's really a dark figure.
Well, so is his brother.
Yeah.
Right. But it was Jim Rudd who created the Stanton meetings in Langley, Virginia, and it was to create the Emancipation Party, which was a new political party that was very aligned with kind of like a Bernie Sanders type of platform, and they had a split. And it didn't. He said that he really couldn't convince mostly the millennials. He said if it was the boomers, they were all on board. He said that the Gen X were, he could pretty much work them. He thought the millennials, he said they loved the platform, but they were more anarchistic in their mindset, and so they didn't like the idea of political party at all. So they rejected it. And so they weren't able to get the Emancipation Party going, although there seems like Christopher Life's United Independent Party, which is an oxymoron just in the title, but is very much a kind of that. It's kind of like another iteration of the Emancipation Party. But in any case, they kept going with this idea of Game B. And it was, I believe, Thor, I'm blanking his first name, but who said that they should use Game B as the branding. Game B is the short version is essentially that it's this idea that we're going to move out of Game A, which is it's basically moving out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius.
Wow.
Another way of saying it, but they say that Game A is all about competition and it's a zero-sum game and there's winners and losers. And this is also, we see a lot of reminiscence of this in Esalen, Est, right, Landmark Forum, all those games, and SEL is using those games for children. So this is not something that, was fringe and died. This is a very, but now it's being kind of rebranded and remarketed as what they call Game B. So Game B is moving into the age of cooperation, which is the same thing as the age of Aquarius. They just have different names for it. But all of these people are creating these technologies. There's a lot of money being injected into creating Game B, which is where we can be part of the noosphere, the high Borg mind. They don't say Borg, but now they're moving into Borg mind. But they're using the.
They don't want to. They just want to rebrand all this stuff to make it sound more palatable.
Yeah, exactly. But Nomap
stuff. Yeah.
Nomap was it's been renamed to S7 Foundation. But as you can see from the spelling, when you look at it, it's NOOMAP. It literally what they actually say to inhabit the noosphere. Like they don't hide it at all. That this is coming straight out of Teilhard de Chardin idea of the noosphere. Right. But all these people are creating these technologies, and they're using things like Web3, which Peter Thiel is a huge proponent of. They're talking about holons and holochains, which build onto blockchain. And so this is really a way they're actually creating the various technologies that can be utilized to create the network state that Peter Thiel is proposing. Again, it's a
right. These are all his people in power now. Vance and all these other characters.
All of it, and Vance kind of has both sides, right? I don't know if he has any Malta ties, but he is an integralist, right? So he has connections to all of those kind of like, NatCon and. All of those like Christian nationalist kind of advocates. So he had a lot of ties to that, which I don't know, looks kind of like the Crusades. I don't know. I know that sounds like a big leap, but we're philosophically and ideologically, I'm concerned about the direction.
Come full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a good way to bookend it right there.
Yes.
Till next time. I should have you on my show. You can talk about all this stuff. Sure. I don't know that much about it. I don't know much about Game B, Web3, Stanton. I don't even know what the Stanton meetings are. Those are all new to me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd be happy to come talk about it because I think I think a lot of people don't know that much about it. I'm trying to sound the alarm because I think it's actually really going to kind of become way more relevant than I would like it to be.
Right. We're like less than 30 days before the new administration. So
Yeah.
Yeah, come on
exactly.
and talk about it. I'd love to have you
So
on.
I will. And I know people are listening. So I'm just going to say this because I know people who are listening and say, well, you told us to vote for Trump. And I will still say this. We're unfortunately in this paradigm where we get thrown, politicians are, as Gilbert Griffin said, which I just thought this was priceless. He said, politicians are con men, and everybody in the audience is kind of like, yeah, yeah, sure, they're con men. And he says, right. He said, but I've never met a con man that I didn't trust, which is hilarious. It's like right there, the confidence men, that's their job, to instill confidence. And so, yeah, I mean, we're unfortunately left with these choices between like bad and worse half the time. But the one thing about Trump that I hope he lives up to this is that I do think he will present some real opportunities in the sense of hopefully we'll have a better economy. And that's nothing to sneeze at because, people cannot create and be innovative. I shouldn't say cannot, but it's much more difficult when people are in desperate means. So, to create an environment where there is a growing economy and people can loosen the noose around their neck, I think that is really promising. I also think that there is kind of this injection of American pride, and a demoralized population is not one that can it's not one that's going to thrive. So I think it is really important that we hold on to that and that we seize that. And there's some other really good things that I think he is suggesting. I hope he follows through on them. Of course, right now it's lip service, but they're already talking about exiting the WHO on the first day. I'd love to see that happening. I'd love to see him just defund the UN. He's talked about that. These are things that really can. RFK's plan. I mean, I'm very concerned about RFK advocating for things like precision medicine, but I love his idea of getting rid of glyphosate and pesticides and seed oils and trying to make America healthy again. So, I don't want to say it's not all bad. There are definite opportunities there, and I think we need to seize those, but we also need not to be deluded into thinking that there's no other perhaps nefarious agendas at play that we need to be aware of.
Amen.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I always enjoy our shows. You are a wealth of information and a phenomenal researcher and investigator. So yeah, check out, tell people where you'd like them to find you because they can get all your books. You're a great writer, and listen to your podcast, which is in the top 5% of podcasts. So tell people where you'd like them.
It's William Ramsey Investigates. You can find it on, iTunes or Spotify. And then I post a lot more on Twitter. I haven't been censored. Maybe shadow banned, but I haven't been overtly censored there. So that's nice. And then all my books you can find at my website, William Ramsey Investigates, or Amazon. So thanks again. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for watching and listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.